Good morning. Welcome to New York City. It's an absolutely gorgeous day here in New York. And for those of you on YouTube, I will show you that. Maybe I should just leave you with this view of New York. It's, doesn't change, but it's better than looking at my ugly mug. Hey, a lot of things to talk about today. Super Bowl jazz, some of the research I did on the 5 hour, 4 hour airplane yesterday for you. The, oh my gosh, I have the craziest story I have to share with you guys. I, uh, I got in my cab. We arrived first half's going on, and I get in my cab last night trying to get to the my buddy's house. One of my best friends actually used to work for Overstock.com. So for those of you that are might know who he is if you follow that kind of stuff. And I get in the cabbie, and I'm like, "Hey, could you find the Super Bowl at 6:60 a.m.?" And I evidently find the one cabbie who has no digital readout anywhere of what radio station he's on. And so the guy can't, I mean, we're searching, he can't find, and, when you're searching stations, they all sound the same. And I'm like, what's going on? I was like, hey, I think you might be on FM because it was all music. And he kind of goes, huh? And I was like, God, I don't think he understood that. And so then I start to peer through the New York glass in between the cabbies to see what's going on. And I notice he's just pushing the AM FM button. That's all he's doing. He's just pushing the AM FM button over and over. I'm like, hey, bud, that's actually not switching stations. There's no, we're not going to find it that way. And so he goes on this search. He finds Spanish and leaves it. And I said, hey, his English was good. This wasn't some of those stereotypical story. Well, my cabbie didn't speak English. And the guy was great, actually. He just had no idea how to use his radio. I mean, it was stunning how little of an idea he had. So he gets to Spanish. I'm like, dude, I don't understand Spanish well enough to be able to take things. Like, either do I. I understand Indian and English. And so anyway, we never found it. But it was just classic. Some thoughts on the Super Bowl. It was obviously a fabulous game. And everybody thinks what they think of the ads. Uh, and I've been talking about, if you've been listening to the Once Was, Never Will Be Again, Bowler, Jack, Locke, and Gerard, I've been talking to Eli all year. It was just really clear he had come into his own. He was a different player. Remember at the beginning of the year, we didn't think much of Victor Cruz, Mario Manningham, or Hakeem Nicks as though they were elite wide receivers in the NFL. It just isn't how they were thought of. So, to some extent, I think you got to give Eli some credit for turning those guys into that level of player and level of elite wide receiver in the NFL. It was, and it's very interesting to see what wins in this league and what doesn't win in this league. And I'm not sure you can really take major takeaways. If you're a front office person, I'm not sure you can take a major takeaway from the Super Bowl because, first of all, really they win based on luck. And what I mean by that is, first off, is if I remember correctly, there was a missed field goal by somebody, whether it was Dallas or somebody else, that really kind of changed their whole playoff position this year. I mean, a missed field goal. It was a chip shot, if I recall. And then the second thing is they win last night out of luck. The Giants win last night because two fumbles bounced the right direction. Fumble recovery is completely luck. There's no statistical backing year in and year out that the same thing will happen when it gets down to fumble recoveries. It's completely luck based. And so and last night there were two fumbles inside their red zone that they recover. That's why they win the Super Bowl. We can get into all these other things, and we'll all, and Ben Bagley and I talk a lot. And good luck with Bagley and Parks, the new show, 1 to 3, by the way. We talk about a lot of different things. Bagley and I talk about recency bias. We'll all talk about the last plays of the game. But the fact is that, the Giants, they got lucky. The ball bounced their direction. But what really jumps out to me, and this relates to now Alex Smith and Tim Tebow, is if there's a takeaway, these teams are all incredibly even. Anybody who's predicting and claims they knew, I mean, I picked the Giants on this tip-off thing, but who cares? It's just pure luck. The Giants got outscored this year in the regular season. They got outscored in their 16-game regular season. They went 9-7 and got outscored. Okay, the differential between the team that wins the Super Bowl and the other teams in the NFL is so slim, which is why actually Tim Tebow and Alex Smith in a time where we're going to all talk about Eli Manning and Tom Brady, the greatest quarterbacks, and Drew Brees and Aaron. Actually, my takeaway is that Alex Smith and Tim Tebow might be able to work. Because what did the Giants do? They didn't turn the ball over during the playoffs. They committed one turnover. Now, they got lucky because that ball bounces the other direction for them. But they committed one turnover. And what really did Tebow do that was so good during his run? He didn't turn the ball over. And what did Alex Smith really do that was so good during his season? He didn't turn the ball over. And that's a little bit of my takeaway on where things are in the NFL. That the margin between good and bad or Super Bowl winning and regular is so slim that I think tells you. The other one that would tell me why the Giants won. My other takeaway would be because Tom Coughlin is still their head coach, because Eli Manning is still their quarterback, and they just when the margins are that slim, the lack of change is very, very important. Consistency and having a system and believing in your culture and not altering what you do and not making change for change's sake or fans' sake, I think is really vital when you consider how slim the margin is in the NFL. All right, that's enough on the NFL. Huge win against the Lakers. These guys just fight. It's awesome. It's really awesome. I think it's going to be really interesting to see what happens in the next 65 days of major travel. It's an insanity that we're about to venture into. But you know what? The Jazz put themselves in good position without, when they taking advantage of what they had. And there's a few areas of concern that I have, but then I want to talk about just what's really going on. The concern level is that these guys play so hard. To win, they have to play so hard. Their margin is also very slim. And so there are going to be nights that we have to just accept where the tank is on empty because these guys just cannot float through 42 minutes, put it on for 6 minutes, and try to win a basketball game. There's not enough skill in this team. But their number one skill right now is their collective attitude of fight. And that's the most impressive thing. Earl Watson has completely set the tone and defined who this team is. I think some of his stuff is nuts. I don't think there's a chance his team finishes in the top 3 in the West, but he truly believes it. And as long as he truly believes it, he's going to carry the teammates along to trying to believe it. And most importantly, Gordon Hayward's watching Earl Watson, Derek Favors, Enes Kanter, Alec Burks are watching Earl Watson, and they are becoming better players simply based on what Earl Watson is doing. He is setting a tone of what's acceptable, what's not, how you're supposed to fight, how you're supposed to play. It's very, very impressive to see. It's really quite awesome. And just incredible amounts of respect to Earl for what he is doing with this basketball team right now. Kanter and Favors were so good against L.A. They were the key to the game. Kind of what you needed out of them in the Warriors game, you got in the Lakers game. And both of them are developing their post play quite nicely. I've been tweeting about it. I wrote about it on Empty the Noggin. These guys both are learning post moves. Mike Sanders, Ty Corbin, Al Jefferson. Ron Boone really wants to point out a lot, and I think he's right. Al Jefferson has, in practices, works awfully hard with these guys and in what they're doing and how they're coming along and developing. And it's very, very impressive to see that kind of development that we're getting out of Kanter and Favors. They both are adding post games. They're both getting better defensively. They're playing very hard. It's very, very interesting. I actually think it leads to a question I would have for Ty, which is, as Kanter and Favors develop, do you stay with the Jefferson Millsap combination that you've been playing? Right now he's playing Jefferson and Millsap together, and he's playing Kanter and Favors together. And they very rarely swap. And I'm not sure that as the season evolves, that doesn't evolve also. Well, first of all, the Millsap-Jefferson combo has a major rebounding problem. The Jazz have allowed 50 offensive rebounds in the last 3 games. They have got to find a way to become a defensive rebounding team again. This is where they fell apart last year defensively as much as anything, is they stopped defensive rebounding, and that changed who they were. And right now, Jefferson and Millsap are not, as a combination, are not defensive rebounding. That will be a huge issue tonight against Amari, and Tyson Chandler will be a huge issue against Roy Hibbert. They neither of them are very vertical. Favors is obviously the best athlete. Cantor's got is the best body of the group, and I wonder if there's some level where we begin to see, Cantor playing with Millsap or Jefferson, Favors playing with because of the rebounding issues. Not changing the starting lineup, but just not necessarily having the rotation as intertwined right now as it is, just with those two guys playing against each other, would be my thought. Did some interesting research on the plane about shot selection. Jazz defense is slipping. Largely it's defensive rebounding, actually. What's really happened is they're not protecting the rim as well as they did earlier, but I think a lot of that's probably offensive rebounds that are going back up from a very close distance. That's the area where the Jazz are struggling defensively. They are still forcing people generally into pretty good shots, and they're not defending. Teams are getting a few more threes off against them right now than they were earlier this year. So that's probably the two things. They got to continue to run people off the three. They're not doing that as well. And they're not protecting the rim as well as they were. I think the rim is related to defensive rebounding, with guys just getting second chance points right at the rim. We saw that both in all the last 3 games. And then the final one I did was a huge research project, which is not done yet, on 4-year college players and how they develop. And I've said this to you a lot on the show, and I wanted to back it up. And the basic concept is that a 4-year college player enters the league, and particularly shooting-wise, what they shoot their rookie year is basically what they're shooting for the career. Some of you that are smarter in math can probably have a better understanding this, but I have done 35 players so far, and I was taking effective field goal percentage, which weighs three-point shooters, and true shooting percentage, which includes kind of free throw shooting. I did some other numbers also, but these two are the most telling. What a player shoots their rookie year, all 35 of them combined, to what they shoot for the career, was the rookie year number was 98.7% of what their career number is. Okay, so you got about a 1% increase in your talent. Very rarely, and unless there's a really strange circumstance, does a player change who he is, or really, unless the player truly changes who he is. I'll give those examples in a second. Do the players increase? David West got better. We'll see him tomorrow night. He didn't play much his rookie year. He played about 800 minutes. Danny Granger and Jared Dudley changed who they were as players. They came in as undersized power forwards and became wings. And they then changed, and their game changed. Almost anybody else, if they, in particular if they were bad, if a 4-year college player is bad in his opening year, the chances that he turns it around are almost zero. I mean, really, AC Law, Julius Hodge, I mean, guys just out of the league. Sheldon Williams, a lot of players like that. So that's been, I thought some of that was pretty interesting today. On YouTube, I'm not attacking you. I'm leaning forward to go to the tip-off questions. So that's a bunch of the stuff. As always, you guys keep sending me your various different questions. This is how we're communicating now without the radio show. So keep continuing to let me know what you guys need. Was this more of a player's decision or a coach's decision that we've stopped going for 2 for 1? I don't know. I'm going to go talk to Ty about it. I will put that. I'm writing it down right now. But I noticed it and mentioned it the other night of the broadcast. We don't seem to be going for 2 for 1 anymore the way we used to, which I'm not sure if that's, I think that's a good thing. I don't have a problem with that, I guess is what I'm saying. What is Eric Gordon's Locke offense ranking? What are his points per possession? Would he fit with the Jazz? Eric Gordon, when healthy, is fabulous. That's from Wells 801. He is one of the better Locke offensive rating when he's healthy. Now, when he got a little less healthy and a little less in shape, he became a almost predominant three-point shooter, and you see these dips and swings in who he is as a player, which would be the only question mark I'd have on Eric Gordon. But generally, I think Eric Gordon is terrific. And if the Jazz could acquire him and he wanted to come here, which would maybe be the bigger issue, you certainly would. But again, it's very hard. We're going to have to try to figure out who we can have here and who's willing to stay. And we need to do an awful lot to get those players to stick together. If Kobe's alone in the woods and he misses a jumper, does he still get fouled? I loved it. I just had to throw it in there. And I also would say I thought Gordon Hayward did a really terrific job defending him the other day. Raja always does. But I thought Gordon Hayward really pushed Kobe off his spots, made him work incredibly hard to get shots. Once he got the ball, there's not a lot you can do. But I thought we saw a lot of tenacity and fight. And we really do have our nightly little feature on teams trying to punk Gordon Hayward and not having any success doing it. All right, that's tip-off today. Keep sending your questions to Locke Tip-Off. Keep sending your suggestions of what you want on the show. I don't think I'm going to get a podcast for you today with the early game. It's a little difficult. I'm supposed to have Kevin Pelton Mythbusters for you tomorrow from Indiana. Wednesday will be PKI, hopefully. Kevin O'Connor later in the week, and hopefully we'll have a Friends of Locke. If I get a chance to sit down with someone in New York, maybe I'll record that today. Keep sending your suggestions. We will try the Google Hangout at some point, and keep it rolling. Thank you very much. Special thanks to Lincoln Armstrong, who sends me all sorts of great suggestions, and they are exactly that. I appreciate all of you guys. A lot of you know social networking and all this stuff better than I do, and I'm always willing to take your suggestions. So that is Tip-Off. Talk to you soon.